Hey everybody, good to see you again. This is Taylor Thomas, your TVUC Stewardship Chair. I was just coming to you today to say thank you so much to everybody who's made a pledge this year in our campaign. As of today, we've raised just north of $495,000. That is incredible. It's an incredible fundraising year. It's an incredible fundraising year, especially given our virtual campaign once again and the circumstances we find ourselves in. I know that if you're like me, I'm sure you were very much looking forward to being back in person, and just given the Delta variant and some of the situation here in Tennessee, just being safe, it's for the best that we're continuing to meet online. And I know if you're like me, I've got a 2-year-old, as you can see, and so we're being really careful about keeping him safe as an unvaccinated individual. I just encourage everybody, if you haven't already, get that vaccine. And hopefully we'll be able to meet back in person soon. But until then, just thank you once again for all that you do for our church. Again, an incredible fundraising year, and I hope we get to see each other again. But until next time, we remain together, even apart, as we've said this entire campaign. If you need anything, please reach out to us, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye.
Our opening words come from The Mountain, a Unitarian Universalist camp and conference center in Highlands, North Carolina. And this morning we will be speaking about forgiveness. And so let us begin with words from the Jewish tradition. Help us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. Come, let us worship together.
We are here together in this holy moment, and we're grateful for
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another, this is our great covenant.
Who can say I am free? I have pure thought, my great heart. There are none on earth. There are none on earth. A new heart I will give, not stone left but freeze. A new heart I will give, and one that frees. May this day make us strong, like a tree of life with good fruit. Bless us now, amen. Bless us now, amen. May we now forgive, adore that we may live. May we now forgive, that we may live. Amen.
The story I have to share today is an adaptation of one written by Barbara Marshman. And it begins in a land far away, where there was a wise old man who knew a great deal about people because he traveled from place to place. And on this day, he arrived at a strange village he had never visited before. In this town, he noticed that all the people were carrying what seemed to be great bundles on their backs. They couldn't look around very well, and they never looked up because of the heavy burdens that they carried. Now, the wise man was puzzled, and so he finally stopped a young fellow and said, "My good man, I'm a stranger to your land, and I'm fascinated by these large bundles that you all carry about but never seem to put down. What is their purpose?" "Oh, these," answered the young fellow in a matter-of-fact way. "These are our grudges." "My," said the wise man, "that's a lot of grudges to collect at your age." And the fellow responded by saying, "Oh, they're not all mine. Most of them were passed down in my family." He heaved a weary sigh. "See that man over there? I have quite a load of grudges against his family. His great-great-grandfather called mine a horse thief when they both wanted to be elected mayor." And the wise man looked around and shook his head sadly. Wonder what he was thinking. Do you have a guess? He said, "You all look so unhappy. Is there no way to get rid of these burdens?" And the young fellow thought for a moment and then said, "Well, we've forgotten how." And he shifted his load a little bit and he said, "You see, at first we were actually kind of proud of our grudges. Tourists came from miles around, it is said, but after a while, after a few years, Grudgeville became a dreary place. Nobody came. And by then we had forgotten how to stop holding our grudges. They're just always right there." And the wise man said, "If you really want to get rid of those grudges, I think I know 5 magic words that will do the trick." I wonder if any of you can guess what those 5 magic words were. Well, the young fellow couldn't, so he said, "Oh, you do? Well, that would be a miracle. I'll go and have the mayor call the people of Grudgeville together." And off he went as fast as his grudges would let him. And The mayor lost no time calling the people to the village square. And the mayor and the wise man stood on a platform where they could see all the hunched over villagers. And when the people had quieted down a bit, the mayor said, "Good people of Grudgeville, a wonderful thing has happened. A very wise stranger has come into our town. You might have noticed, if you can see him, that he looks a little different than we do. And he says he can tell us the magic words that will rid us of these grudges that we have carried for generations. How many of you would like to be able to straighten up? Have your grudges disappear? Look at the world in a whole new way. So listen to the wise words of our visitor then, and do as he suggests." And so the wise man said, "My friends, these are simple words, yet some people find them hard to say. I think, though, that you will have the courage to speak them. The trick is that you must say them to each other and truly mean them. And I will be honest with you, sometimes there's actually a lot of work to be done to figure out how to mean them. Maybe work that you have to do in order to say them, or that needs to be done in order for them to be said to you. But I assure you the work is worth it. The first two words are, I'm sorry. Can you say them? The other three are, I forgive you. Can you say that? Now I ask you to practice saying those words to each other. And there was a long pause, and then a low grumble from the townspeople. First one person and then another said the words. And soon they were all saying them to each other, quietly at first and then louder. And then, would you believe it, just like the wise man predicted, the grudges began to disappear. Now some of them didn't right away, but they'd been told to expect that. Some of the grudges took time and effort and lots of repair work to be set down. But over time, more and more were, until one day no one in the town was carrying those heavy burdens anymore. And then, can you imagine what joy was in that town? And people were heard saying things like, look how those trees have grown. Oh, is that you, Jim? How good to see your face. And there was dancing in the streets that day. And it wasn't long before the mayor changed the name of the town to Joytown.
Meditation for Yom Kippur by Elizabeth Strong. We have returned again to the time of atonement, the time to look back over our lives this past year and face the realities of when we have fallen short of our aims to set forth in moments of high resolve. We have the opportunity, if we choose to take it, to hold ourselves to a standard that calls us to heed our faith's principles in life as we live each day. The Jewish New Year asks of us forgiveness and atonement, to be at least to one another in times of broken promises, that we may mend relationships, to be at one with one another in times in pain, that we may have comfort in our compassion for the intensity of that pain, to be with each other in times of joy, that we may enrich the shared laughter so necessary to our well-being. Atonement is an attempt to be at one with the holy. For us, it is also an opportunity to create a wholeness of community among ourselves. Here is where the sacred and the holy enter, and the community we create brings a sense of one moment not known elsewhere, of atonement. Forgiveness, atonement, wholeness comes together in this place as we become one gathered community of liberal religious seekers. Let us rejoice and be thankful that we are together again, and in that togetherness, let us be silent. So be it. There are many joys and concerns that I know about and that I don't know about, so that if you know of any, please feel free to share or to say them quietly to yourselves. I'd like you to pray for and think of with positive thoughts Sidney Cotter, Glenn Mullen, the Stapford family, and the Sneed family. Remember them. Hold them close to your heart and smile knowing that you are giving good energy. Join me in a prayer this afternoon for Yom Kippur, but generally for faith, for forgiveness, for atonement. To those I may have wronged, I ask forgiveness. To those I may have helped, I wish I had done more. To those I neglected to help, I ask for understanding. And those who have helped me, I thank you with all of my heart. Amen.
Words that we hold tight won't let us go. Paths we don't follow will haunt us so. What would undo us is not our friend. Show us, O Spirit, how to be friend. Show us how to forgive to all who live. Show us forgiveness that we may live. To speak of loving is not to love. Lies the among us, beloved. When we are raging, meaning to mend, show us, O Spirit, how to be friend. Show us how to forgive to all who live. Show us forgiveness that we may live. When love is doubtful, choice is not clear, we turn to worship to cast out fear. Teach us forgiveness, make love our friend. Show us, O Spirit, how to be friend. Show us how to forgive all who live. Show us forgiveness that we may live.
Good Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Claudia Presley, and I'm the Director of Administration here at TVUUC. Today is a Share the Plate Offering Sunday. What that means is that our organization today, which is the Lonsdale Elementary School Environmental Camp and TVUUC, will split any offerings that come in that are not labeled as a pledge. The ways you can give are to go to tvuuc.org/give, or you can text give by going to 73256, type in TVUUC, and then the amount that you would like to give. Once again, thanks for joining us today. Have a great Sunday.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim. Asei manu, tzedakah v'chesed. Asei manu
Benjamin Rush was one of the founding fathers, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and a physician that served alongside George Washington in the American Revolution, and one of the earliest to advocate for the abolition of slavery. He was also known for going to the Universalist Church on occasion. But once he was asked by a son, "What should I be when I grow up?" A kind of familiar question that children ask their parents. And he said to his son, "It is better to be a soldier than a politician, because a soldier kills without hating, whereas a politician hates without killing, but through that hatred commits murder every single moment of their lives." I've been meditating on that statement a lot this year, because it seems like all of us are being invited into that world of hatred. It's not reserved for the political classes anymore. We're all being invited to nurture resentments, to hold on to grudges, to be angry with each other. Each one of us has been invited into the most vitriolic aspects of political life. Winston Churchill once said, "I've never hated anyone except Adolf Hitler, and that was strictly professional." Of course, Winston Churchill was not naive. He did know how to divide and conquer in politics and how to pit people against each other. But he's being honest about something, more honest than many politicians are, that this is often part of the profession of politics, a political strategy, rather than just a way of life, a way of choosing to live. He was very adept at politics. But we don't have to enter into that kind of way of thinking about how to be in relationship with each other. Hatred is a toxin, and it might begin at the top with some leaders pitting us against each other, but it can spread down into the body politic and infect every home and infect every community, and indeed spread and poison every single one of our hearts. Hatred is a toxin, and we need to learn how to detox. But today's sermon is not so much about politics. Today's sermon is much more personal than that. It is much more personal because a toxin that begins in politics can poison our home, One of the things I've noticed about the professional haters of the world, the talking heads on cable news, is that they tend to have a higher than average number of divorces among them. So this strategy of polarizing people and dividing people as a political strategy, when brought home, does not lead to intimate relationships. Polarization at home, division at home. It is hard to live at peace when there is a war at home. As the Tao Te Ching says, before there can be peace in the world, there has to be peace among nations. And before there can be peace among nations, there needs to be peace in the cities. And before there can be peace in the cities, there must be peace in the heart. We may start by creating conflict, out there in the world, but the conflict comes home. And so if we nurture bitterness and resentments, and we do it for strictly professional reasons, it can end up poisoning everything we know and love. Hatred injures the hater, and bitterness poisons those who are embittered. And so it's very important not to let that poison into our lives. Anger can poison us even when that anger is justified. And certainly no one has more reason to have justified anger than the health care providers in this country. The hospitals are overrun with people in crisis. All the beds are full. The ICU units are full. There are portable hospital rooms in the parking lot, and sometimes portable morgues. Everyone in the healthcare profession is in a crisis, while everyone else acts like things are normal, like nothing has changed. And yet, even this very justified anger can be poisoning. The healthcare providers have reason to be angry because so many of us will do so little to try to avert this completely unnecessary disaster. All we need to do are a few simple things. We need to get the vaccine. We need to wear face masks. We need to practice physical distancing. We need to relook at our patterns of going out and how we shop and the things that we do so that we don't spread the virus. If we could do these things, then others who work in hospitals wouldn't be in such a horrible situation right now. And one of the reasons that our healthcare providers are so angry is they got into this work to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse. And it's very frustrating to see our political leaders and our government leaders who seem to have the opposite desire, to harm instead of heal, to hinder instead of help, to curse instead of bless. And so we need to be mindful. But one of the reasons we need to monitor our anger, and one of the reasons we need to monitor our resentments and monitor our own emotions, is because if we don't, it's very bad for our health. And so we need to pay attention to our own inner spiritual life if we are to have health and wholeness. So in these toxic times, it can be good to find ways to detox. Take a vacation from social media and other sources that tend to fuel our anger. Do something that you love that renews you. Something like walking or gardening or visiting with friends. Find ways to relax. Find ways to renew. Find ways to re-energize yourself. Spend time with people you know and you trust, who are supportive of you. Spend time in the great outdoors. Take a trip to the mountains. Sit still on a rock and admire the view. An ecologist once said, "We all need to take a break from the world we've made in order to enjoy and appreciate the world that made us." When we are feeling hatred, we are caught up in the world we've made. When we are feeling angry and resentful and bitter, we're stuck in the world we've made. So hatred and anger and bitterness, these are a good signal that we need to leave this world we've made and enter into the world that made us. So take time to go for a walk in the woods, and you can call it rehab. Take time to enjoy the sound of birds, and you can call it therapy. Take time to enjoy a breeze. Take time to detox. My father and his brother, my Uncle Bill, were polar opposites. My Uncle Bill describes himself as slightly to the right of Attila the Hun, and my father was to the left of Mother Teresa. And yet this week at my father's memorial service, I got a chance to visit with Uncle Bill. And before I kept, I was started making a list of things to talk about other than politics. But it turns out I didn't need that list. We were able to sit and connect in ways that are deeper than politics. And I think that is what religion calls us to do, to connect in ways that are deeper than politics. We're in the midst of the high holy days of the Jewish calendar, the time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And this is meant to be a time of letting go of our anger, letting go of our resentments, letting go of all the things that are holding us back spiritually. And Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and the high holy days in East Tennessee, they happen during the season of autumn, when the trees are letting go of their leaves. And it reminds us that letting go can be a beautiful thing. Letting go can be a wonderful and glorious thing. Paradoxically, there is a Muslim story that can help us understand this process of the high holy days, how we can forgive and still maintain appropriate boundaries. Once in Africa, there was a cat, and there were mice, and they were all Muslim. And yet the cat would terrorize the mice. And so whenever the cat was around, the mice would hide in this little hole in the ground. And one day the cat announced, "I'm going to Mecca." And the cat went on a pilgrimage to Mecca. And when the cat returned after many days, the cat announced, as the mice cowered in their little hole, he said, "I've been to Mecca. I've repented of my sins. I'm a new cat. I ask for your forgiveness. And to show you how much I've changed, I want to invite you over to my house for supper." Well, the mice said, "Well, we need to talk about that a little bit before you accept your offer." And they went even further down into that hole in the ground, and they had a big debate whether to forgive the cat or whether to not forgive the cat. What would they do? So they debated it, and they came to a conclusion. And they chose one mouse to be a spokesperson. And that mouse went to the edge of the hole in the ground and said to the cat, "We have good news, Mr. Cat. We've decided to forgive you." And the cat says, "Oh, that's wonderful. I will go and get ready for our wonderful dinner." And then the spokesmouse said, "Well, here's the thing. We forgive you, but we're not coming to your house for dinner. We forgive you today, but trust is going to take a whole lot more time." And so it is with all of us. We can forgive one another and still maintain appropriate boundaries. We can forgive one another without erasing the legitimacy of our concerns. We can forgive people without going to their super spreader party. We can forgive one another, but we don't have to body surf in a crowd of people without masks who are unvaccinated. We can forgive and practice physical distancing. We can forgive and practice appropriate boundaries. This is the most important thing. We can forgive and maintain appropriate boundaries. When Winston Churchill said he'd never hated anyone except Adolf Hitler, and that was strictly professional, he was saying there are times when you've got to draw a line and say, this far, no further. This far, no further. But within the boundaries of safety. We can let go. We can let go of all our bitterness. We can let go of our anger. We can know peace within, which is the only sure foundation of peace in the world. During Rosh Hashanah, it is traditional for Jewish families to dip apple into honey and taste it, and it's a sweet taste. This High Holy Days leads into the new year. It's a new beginning. It's a chance to clean the slate, to forgive sins, to begin again, and to start a new year. And so, in that spirit, I say Lashana Tova, Happy New Year. Let's begin again.
There's a wideness in your mercy, like the wideness of the sea. There's a kindness in your justice, which is more than liberty. But we make your love too narrow by false limits of our own, and we magnify your strictness with a zeal you will not own. For the love of God is broader than the measures of our minds, and the heart of the eternal is most wonderfully kind.
Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere. Its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its ritual works of love, its profession of faith, divine living. Go in peace.
Let people living in all lands declare that fear and pain are gone. Rise above differences and stand in love and understanding one.
As our last act of worship, I invite you to greet your neighbor. Send a text or an email or make a phone call. Do something to reach out to someone you know. Let's find ways to build community during this time of pandemic. Get our newsletter and learn about activities you can do at the church or online. Let's be creative about how we stay connected. Go in peace.